Okay, moving on to the questions and answers. We're going to walk through these and give short answers. Either myself or Alex will be addressing the question depending upon the topic. So moving on, sorry. Can shareholders get an update on Eden's products, including status of ongoing regulatory approvals and current plans for expansion? The answer to this is yeah, of course, and we try to provide updates as we go along. As you may know, the pending authorization that will probably be the most impactful in the shorter term is the authorization in the United States, where we are currently awaiting US EPA authorization for our 3 active ingredients and our 2 lead products, those being Mevalon and Cedros. We are anticipating regulatory authorization before year end. In the meantime, there are a good number of regulatory processes running around the world in key markets for both products, and we will continue to provide updates as and when progress is made. In terms of plans for expansion, with the development of business in North America, we are looking at providing some resource for the company in the United States, primarily aligned to commercial activities. Is Eden developing any other products at present? And I think we've covered this to some extent, but just to recap our first 2 products, the first is a biofungicide called Mevalon, and also known by other brands, depending upon the country. And the second is a bionematicide sold as Cedros by our partner Eastman in about 30 countries. We are also developing and are in the kind of earlier stages of development of an insecticide focused on key pests, what are called sucking pests. There are 4 of them, and these are spread across a broad range of crop targets. In addition to that, and as we've announced, we are working on the development of seed treatment products in coordination and collaboration with Corteva. Those are the 2 primary areas in which we're focused at the moment. As we've indicated previously, we are also looking to expand the label for our existing products as and where possible. And we are looking at 2nd and or 3rd generation products in all product categories as we look forward. Trilogy Mevalon was granted 120-day emergency approval in Italy in February. What happens after the 120 days? Well, the timing of that coincides with the growing season, peak growing season in Italy. And to be clear, to remind everybody, these were authorizations related to additional crops and additional disease targets, not just botrytis on grapes in Italy. So after 120 days, we have the ability to reapply, or SIPCAM has the ability to reapply for emergency use authorization. That will be done in coordination with the timing of a proper full authorization application, all subject to ongoing reviews and preparation of efficacy dossiers. So the 120-day can be repeated, all subject to regulatory clearance. But in any case, we have that available to us until such a time that we decide to pursue and or secure authorization for the product on a full use authorization as opposed to an emergency use. How will Eden aim to achieve a reasonable share of the addressable market, both in Mevalon and Cedros? Well, the key for us in this area is the selection of suitable distribution partners. In each and every country in which we're operating, we've spent a considerable amount of time choosing who the suitable distribution partner or commercialization partner might be. We are very pleased with the progress that a good number of them have made. And yet we continue to monitor the situation. All the distribution agreements that we have minimum performance requirements associated with them, both on the regulatory front and on the commercial development front. And you can look for us to actively manage the portfolio of commercialization partners we have in each and every country as we look to maximize sales. How are Eden's products positioned versus competitors, and is this positioning affecting adoption? Yeah, so typically our products are positioned relative to conventional chemistry, which are almost without exception the market leaders in the segments that we're targeting. So we are looking at, providing the market with a biopesticide solution, competing with a conventional chemical product. And how are we positioned? Well, we try to position the product based on its performance and based on the other attributes that it offers. For example, very low or no pre-harvest intervals, and also exemption from residue limits. And so as a consequence, our products are priced at a premium. That said, what we are looking to do is to compete and to capture significant market share. And therefore, we remain flexible to adjust our pricing strategies to local market conditions, and we'll continue to do so. I think it's been reasonably effective thus far. Any idea why not all parts of Italy have heard of Cedros? Well, I'm not quite sure I understand where that question comes from, but there would be a good number of reasons why not all parts of Italy may have heard of Cedros, for example. In regions where they're growing rice, for example, or in regions where they're growing kiwi, for example, or in regions where they're growing corn. I wouldn't expect for growers in that area to have heard of Cedros if Cedros is in fact, or if in fact that crop is not on the label for Cedros. So I would always urge caution when taking anecdotal data and trying to extrapolate it to a more meaningful conclusion. Frankly, we're quite pleased with the progress that Eastman has made in preparing the market for the authorization recently received. I would say we should take another view on this one in a couple of years' time when they've had time to fully execute their marketing and commercial strategies. Question is Eastman firing on all cylinders, both in obtaining new regulatory approvals and marketing? And the short answer to that is our view is yes, Eastman has been a good partner. They have a prioritized list of countries. They are focused on the highest priority, top priority countries first, and they're moving through the process of then, as we launch products, moving into the next tier of priorities. Have sales of Mevlone commenced in Australia, and will sales in Australia commence in conjunction with the growing season? Well, the answer is sales of Mevlone in Australia, where it's actually going to be marketed as Novelis by Sipcam, will commence in conjunction with the growing season. You may recall that authorization was relatively recently received. However, that was outside of the ideal marketing window for the crop cycle in Australia, which, as you may know, is 6 months shifted from where we are in Europe. And so as a consequence, for the next growing season, we do expect sales to commence. Any progress or new applications for label extension in Australia or in other areas? And the short answer to that one is yes. There's lots of activity ongoing. We are expecting a very good list of countries to come through in the short term, and we will advise the market as and when those happen. We have learned through experience that communicating on timelines or anticipated timelines for regulatory authorizations is a bit of a challenge, particularly during the time of a global pandemic. And so, the policy that we have is that we will notify the market as and when we have reliable timelines. This pertains to Corteva and seed treatments and a series of questions related to this topic. And the question is, what is the opportunity you see for seed treatments? And as we've communicated already, we are very focused on, with Corteva right now, a fairly narrow range of crops and targets. As we demonstrate that we can deliver good performance in these targets upon which we're focused at the moment, we will then look to broaden those out. It is correct to say that Eden's products and chemistry and microencapsulation technology are applicable to a quite broad range of opportunities in seed treatment, ranging from things like insecticidal activity, nematicidal activity, fungicidal activity, and others. And so, in the other areas where we're focused on soil-based or foliar applications, one might reasonably expect to see an ultimate focus on seed-applied technologies with the same effects. Why did Eden choose to partner with Corteva? Well, I mean, that's a good question. Corteva, as we've communicated previously and is widely known, is one of the major crop input companies globally. They are the largest crop input pure play company globally. They are a major player in this space, both in crop protection products, but also in seeds through their Pioneer Seeds entity. And they are an aggressive, proactive, solid, really quite nice partner to work with. And in each and every one of the territories that we're looking at, they are a significant player, having a reasonable market share, typically between first and third in each market in which they're operating. So it was a logical conclusion. And critically, we also know that Corteva are resourcing this project in a suitable way. And between Eden and Corteva, we're investing the amount of money that we think is required to bring the product to market as quickly as possible. When can we expect to see revenue generated from the agreement with Corteva? This is the ultimate question that everybody wants to ask. We've asked as well, of course. And the answer is a little bit difficult to come by, as are all answers such as this in our industry, because of course, to remind you, regulatory authorization is the gatekeeper. It is the ultimate hurdle. And so it is very difficult to predict the timing for regulatory clearance for products. However, should things go to plan, we would expect to be in a position to sell product in time for the 2024 growing season. Now, there are a few opportunities in which that might be accelerated a bit, and there are plenty of opportunities in which that might be a bit delayed. So this is our initial commentary on this, and we will continue to update the market as and when we have meaningful updates to provide. Next question is, can you provide some guidance on expected revenues for this product? You mentioned 40 million in one of your presentations a while ago. I'm going to hand this one over to Alex for a response.
So yeah, the 40 million euros is the opportunity that we see for the seed treatment product, which we're currently developing with Corteva. That covers the territory which is falls within the existing agreement. It also covers a number of different crops which would be possible to address using that product which we're developing. So that sort of number is possible, but there are obvious caveats in terms of the product is under development, so therefore there are upsides as well as downsides there. At the same time, there are additional territories where there is opportunity to increase that potential revenue.
Okay, thank you. What are the steps you need to take before you can get the product in the market? Okay, this is, I'm afraid, a little bit of a repeat of an earlier answer, but the key step, the rate limiting step for us, for those of you who are chemists, is in short that we have to have regulatory authorization in the territory concerned. And so what we have to do in the intervening months is prepare the dossiers that the regulators, require. And what that means is that we have to have at a minimum 2 years of good efficacy data to show to the regulators that the product actually works. And the reason I emphasize the word good is that to remind those that have followed the story, It's not always the case that you can generate, or one can generate, 2 years of good efficacy data in 2 years. There are many occasions on which that takes longer. And just to give you an example, if the growing conditions aren't right, if the disease or pest pressure is not right, we may wind up finding ourselves in a position where 1 year's results are not adequate, and therefore there's a further year that's required. So these are the issues that we have to balance out. But the key step here, of course, as with all plant protection products pretty much around the world, is that one must obtain regulatory authorization. And in some territories, it's a bit quicker, and in other territories, it's a bit more slow. Corteva and Eden are both very much focused on a quick launch of a product in this particular category. We are doing anything and everything within our power to get the product to market. We see that as a competitive advantage, and we will continue to focus our resource in that area. Are there plans to use the product outside of the geographies mentioned in the announcement? And the short answer is there is an intention to do exactly that. We are focused at the moment. Even a company with the resource of Corteva has to focus and pick their priorities. The reason that we've selected Europe in conjunction with Corteva is that the regulatory landscape in Europe at the moment favors a product such as this, and so therefore it was sensible to prioritize it above other territories. We very much expect the same dynamic to emerge in other markets and to become an increasing priority. What else is in the pipeline for Eden and seed treatments? Well, we have a number of other projects that are ongoing in the area of seed treatments. As I mentioned earlier, our chemistry can deliver effects such as fungicidal activity, nematocidal activity, insecticidal activity, and others. And we are currently in the process of developing those areas. They are at a bit of an earlier stage in development, though we have had some early stage commercial discussions with potential partners. Now we shift the focus to Sustain, which is our microencapsulation technology, and questions that are related to Sustain. So the question is, what are the plans for the Sustain technology? What is the market opportunity here? The plan for Sustain technology, apart from empowering all of Eden's products related to our active ingredients, is that we are looking to encapsulate third-party active ingredients, both biofungicides, biopesticides, and biological products as a whole, as well as conventional chemistry across all the different product categories. We currently have a very active portfolio of projects that are ongoing, and the intention is ultimately to enter into commercial arrangements with the owners of molecules that fit into successful product candidate category. The market opportunity here is, and I appreciate this sounds slightly hyperbolic, but yeah, the market opportunity here is vast. It's almost unlimited. So today, every single product formulation in the crop protection industry that relies upon polymer-based microencapsulation technology is an obvious and immediate candidate for Sustain technology. Now, to be clear, Sustain won't work in each and every one of those, but we know already that there are a good number of molecules with which we are able to formulate stable, good products with enhanced efficacy and stability. And so, we're pursuing those opportunities at the moment in conjunction with a number of partners. Rest assured, we will say something to the market as soon as we're in a position to do so. Does anyone else have a technology like this on the market? The short answer is no, not based on the same approach that we're taking. There are numerous other microencapsulation technologies. Some of those also, like ours, will not run afoul of the likely regulatory restrictions that will be placed on the EU market. Microencapsulation technologies, there are many of them, and there are almost as many microencapsulation technologies as there are problems out there that require microencapsulation, but we feel that we have a very clear advantage. And we also know that we have a technology that's been demonstrated in commercial products to date. And the best examples of those I can give you are our first two products and our subsequent products. So stay tuned on this one. Has Systane got authorization to be used in Europe or elsewhere? Has it been through the regulatory process / approval? Well, Systane is an inert ingredient, and as such, I don't want to generalize too much, but if I were to generalize, I would say, generally speaking, inert ingredients are not regulated in the same way as active ingredients. And therefore, what I would say is authorization for the use of Systane in most territories around the world is relatively straightforward. We need to demonstrate that the formulations are safe, but we're not trying to register here another active ingredient. It is an inert, it is a delivery system, and that is how it's seen. It has been through the regulatory process in the sense that we have two products that are already authorized in the EU and other territories and have been successful. And of course, we expect a good number of those to continue in the future. Next question, what if any headway has been made with Systane with regard to consumer health market? How relevant is this market to Eden in the next 12 to 24 months? Well, I'll start with the last question. It's less relevant to us in the next 12 to 24 months as we are awash in opportunities in the crop protection industry with biopesticides, whether they be our own products, any of the two that are commercially launched or two that are under further development, not to mention the others, and not to mention Systane. So with our focus at the moment on crop protection, consumer health is less important. With that said, as those of you who have followed the story will be aware, Terpene Tech has developed and received a CE mark for a product that is a head lice treatment product, which is yet to be launched, but is also based on the Systane microencapsulation technology. So, we see plenty of opportunities there. As you'll appreciate, Eden is a small company, and even with our successful fundraise a bit more than a year ago, we don't have the bandwidth to do anything and everything. So, we are prioritizing. With that said, consumer health, we believe, does represent a very real and significant opportunity for us, and that's one that we'll be pursuing in due course. Financials.
So the question is, when will you update your market guidance for 2021? The last time we did this was back in February 2020, and obviously the world has been slightly all over the place since then. Once things have settled down a bit, we will look to get updated market guidance out as soon as possible. Obviously, things have changed to the good in terms of the seed treatment opportunity, amongst others. So we're keen also to update shareholders as soon as practicable. Do you have plans to pay out a dividend? We continually monitor our dividend policy, and we would be open to paying a dividend as soon as practicable. But I think that's probably all we can say for the time being. What is your view on the recent share price performance? Well, I think for those investors who came in March 2020, obviously the share price has done pretty well. There's been good price appreciation since then. More recently, say since the beginning of this year, the price has been up and down a bit, but we're slightly above where we started the year. If we go back further than that, which I appreciate some of you will be interested to know, well, I think that's a longer term view, and we need to look to the future. Is the current valuation of the company justified? Is it a true reflection of what Eden truly is all about? If not, how did the board of Eden change this? Well, I think there's obviously a number of questions there. I think the main point really here is that, from my perspective, the market really needs to be updated. So back to the point about updating the forecasts and educating people as to exactly what the opportunities for Eden are, what are the values that we can attribute to the various opportunities that we have, as well as the risks. But I think that once we're able to clarify various opportunities and the values that are attributed to them, that we can see, it will become more clear as to exactly what the opportunities are. Eden's share price is the same today as it was in 2012. Does this offer shareholder value? Well, facts are facts, unfortunately, sometimes, but in terms of the market cap, we have significantly increased that from around, I believe, 12 million in 2012 to 43 million, based on the current share price, or thereabouts. That said, we do appreciate as a board of directors that share price appreciation is something that we would all like, and obviously we as the board of directors have a vested interest in ensuring that that does increase. So we are addressing various possibilities as to how to ensure that we see that appreciation going forward. Do you believe that the company has credibility with shareholders and potential investors? Well, I think that the successful fundraise in March 2020, where we added on 11 new well-regarded institutional investors, probably shows that they believe that we are credible, we hope. In addition, our key commercial partner, SIPCAM, as well as some of our existing shareholders, also took part in that placing. So yes, we think that we do have credibility, and again, we hope certainly that we do have credibility with shareholders and potential investors. You've recently announced a new long-term incentive plan. Is this justifiable given the recent performance? A long-term incentive plan, or LTIP, is there to provide an investment to management to seek an appreciation in the share price over time, and obviously isn't linked to historic performance. So again, it helps to align interests of directors as well as shareholders. And it's worth reminding you that the plan that we have in place now is actually structured with input from some of the new, now major shareholders that we brought on board as part of the fundraise in March 2020. Can you assure shareholders that no capital raising exercise is imminent, which to some extent is holding back the share price? That, as you'll all appreciate, is a question that we get quite a lot. Given the fundraise in March last year, we are well funded. We have no intention currently to raise additional funds, certainly for working capital. And I think that's all we can really say. I believe one of the institutional shareholders is still reducing their holding. Is this so? The short answer is not, as far as we're aware. Does the board continue to consider that an AIM listing is the appropriate ownership for Eden Research PLC? Yes, is the short answer. AIM is well recognised, well regarded exchange. It's certainly provided us with credibility with foreign companies, in particular. Some of those partners that we have done deals with over the past few years appreciate, understand AIM and what that means in terms of credibility, but also going forward, accessing funding to build the business as and when opportunities may arise is absolutely of interest to us. Please explain why publication of the annual report and accounts is delayed. We had delays inevitably, of course, due to COVID. And in addition, this review that we've mentioned in our prelims by the Financial Reporting Council led to a fairly regrettable delay in publishing our report and accounts. So it said the review centered around a technical accounting issue, which was satisfactorily resolved in the last month. Does the board consider that the current management team and resources are sufficient to commercialize the intellectual property developed and owned by the company, and so move the business into a profitable cash-generating position? As you know, we've significantly increased our team over the past year, and with a few more hires, we believe that we will be in a position to fully exploit the very valuable IP that we have at our disposal. What is Eden's monthly cash burn rate, and what is the cash position held on account? So currently the overheads for the business are around 2.5 million per annum, and the cash in hand at the 31st of May was £6 million.
Okay, so moving on to another group of questions. These are we've grouped as macro factors. The question is, how has how has COVID-19 impacted the business, and what have you done to mitigate this? Well, COVID-19 has had a fairly broad range of impacts on us, ranging from the pace with which we're able to secure regulatory authorizations, with working practices around the world affecting various regulatory agencies in ways that you might have all experienced in your own lives when it comes to dealing with, you know, any entity, business, regulator, or you know, public service entity. It's kind of a very sorry to use an overused term, but unprecedented situation. And you know, we have absolutely seen this have an impact on working practices and normal timelines. In addition to that, as you'll imagine, both of our products that are in the market today are relatively new products compared to their peers. And with relatively new products, the way we advance sales is we get in front of people, we get in front of farmers, we hold education seminars, our distributors do exactly the same thing. This has all been complicated by COVID, with us having everything from the inability to travel internationally to the inability to attend field trials, even down the road from us, quite literally. So this has been a bit of a frustration. The net sum of all of those things, in addition to supply chain disruptions precipitated by things such as Brexit and changing rules, have not created a particularly favorable environment. But you know, I think we're managing with these quite reasonably. With respect to how do we mitigate these things, well, we have multiple sources of manufacture available to us. We manufacture both in Europe as well as in the UK, as in the EU and the UK. In addition to that, we have a qualified toll manufacturer in North America. We have spread that risk out. We have multiple sources of our raw materials. And you know, we have tried to spread the risk as much as we can, on the basis that having all of our eggs in one basket is fundamentally a negative thing anyway. And situations such as COVID highlight the need for risk mitigation strategies. How has Brexit impacted the business, and what have you done to mitigate this? Well, I just touched upon that. I would say I would apply the previous answer to this question. Brexit has complicated matters for us to some extent. It has also created some supply chain disruption with international shipping, containers, transport, air freight, etc., all being disrupted to some extent. I think we're starting to emerge from that, at least to some extent. So we remain fairly positive on the longer term impact. Shorter term, there has been some disruption. And in terms of mitigation, again, the answer that I gave previously applies. We have spread our risk over multiple suppliers with multiple nationalities and multiple contract manufacturing locations. What is your strategy for 21 and 22? Well, yeah, great question. Big question, albeit short. The answer to that, and trying to keep this one short, is that we're going to continue to leverage the investments that we've made to date, meaning that we will absolutely sweat all of the assets related to the registration of Mevalon, whether those be in that be in Europe, North America, or elsewhere in the world, including Latin America and Asia Pacific. We will continue to leverage the relationships that we've developed, whether those be with Sumitomo, SIPCAM, Corteva, you know, etc., Ephremiadis and Eastman. All of these are relationships that have scope for additional potential. And frankly speaking, with all of these partners, we're quite pleased with the development. And we will continue to push ahead on that. Furthermore, a key element of the strategy for us in 2020 was to expand our capabilities and to become far less reliant on third parties for you know, the future. And we will continue to develop the team, to invest in people, to ensure that we have the right people and the right resources to do what we do. Our competitive advantage in the marketplace, on top of our IP and our know-how, is our people. And that sounds a little bit cliche, so apologies for that, but we've hired some very good people. The team has gelled very nicely, and we will continue to invest in these folks and look to secure the resources that we absolutely need to move the business forward. It appears that Eden has deprioritized its consumer and animal health business lines. Is this the case? Well, as we've communicated previously, that is to some extent the case. We have partnered in both of these areas. And what I would say is in the animal health business, after a sale of Bayer Animal Health's animal health business, to Elanco, we see a new partner with a renewed focus on the development of products in this category. With regard to consumer products, this has been less of a priority for us, but we will continue to support our partner in this area, TerpeneTech, and we will look to optimize our approach to the consumer products market going forward. Okay. Who are our main competitors? Well, we actually see our main competitors to be some of the same people as our potential commercial partners or our best commercial partners. And so here we really see conventional chemistry as our competitor. And so as conventional chemistry in crop protection is removed from the market or faces restrictions, we look to fill the void that dynamic produces. And so I wouldn't name any particular company as a potential competitor. What I would say is simply that conventional chemistry is the area upon which we're looking to really compete. Do we have an ESG policy? Great question. There's a lot of focus on ESG at the moment. And we believe that we've had the jump on ESG and ESG strategies, beginning with the award of the Green Economy Mark by the London Stock Exchange in January. We are currently working very hard to round out our ESG position, our policy, and how we will basically share our approach with the market to help ESG-oriented investors understand what it is that we do and how it is that from a sustainability in particular position, we are bringing quite a lot to the table.
Well, TerpeneTech's been selling one of its products, Geraniol, for a number of years, and sales actually continue to grow year on year. So it has been generating value. The head lice product sales have been somewhat hampered by COVID-19, which you might expect due to schools being closed, etc. But the product's good and is expected to be successful in the medium and long term.
Okay, question about the company's succession plan. What is the company's succession plan, given the impact of this on a small company? What I will say is that each and every member of the board of directors is in a position to support the organization on an interim basis in the event of, let's call it a catastrophic event. The truth of the matter is that we have some redundancy built into the board and across the team, particularly the more senior team, as a part of our organizational design. So there would be an interim position followed by the recruitment for the role that needs to be replaced in due course. Commercial partnerships. The question is, are you looking at any other agreements in a similar vein to Corteva, and what is the time frame for these? It should be said that we are constantly involved in discussions with partners such as Corteva, including companies with a similar profile across a whole range of activities. It would be premature for me to comment on any details related to that, but as and when we're in a position to make commentary, we certainly will. At the moment, there is a very strong emphasis on commercial development across the company. And in that, not only are we looking to grow existing partnerships, but we're also looking to basically, I'll say, curate our existing portfolio of distribution and commercialization partners around the world, always with the view to maximizing revenue generation opportunities, etc. Question is, how are things progressing with SIPCAM? And the answer is very simple, very well. The primary focus of SIPCAM at the moment that is visible is the activities that are ongoing in Italy and Spain, where SIPCAM have been very successful in growing market share year over year. We have a very strong position in Italy with grapevine fungicide, particularly targeting botrytis, as you might know, where the product is sold as Trilogy. In addition to that, they were very successful in securing a 120-day emergency use authorization for a broadened label for Trilogy in Italy. Moreover, in Spain, we recently announced a significant full broadening of the label to include a number of new important disease and crop targets. And very much more recently, SIPCAM in Spain has been addressing the Portuguese market, where we are developing meaningful sales in Portugal. On the back of additional regulatory authorizations, you will see SIPCAM take up the rights they have to distribute our products in key territories, such as the distribution of Mevalone in North America, where we know the organization in the US is very excited to have Mevalone in their portfolio. They are making some significant plans to move that forward to market, and we are very much looking forward to interacting with them more on a day-to-day basis, pending EPA authorization for the product. Does Eden have enough resource on its commercial team? That's a good question. As we've communicated, we have been very focused on building the R&D and the regulatory teams over the course of the last year. That's been almost our sole focus. However, I'm happy to say that we have grown the number of people in our product management group to 2 from 1. And so we have some expanded capability there. We've brought over a person that had been working with us in an R&D capacity to leverage her expertise, and in particular, we will have her focused on product management activities related to Sustain and the commercialization of the Sustain technology with third-party activities. Moreover, we're looking at expanding our commercial capabilities in new territories as they come on stream from a regulatory perspective, with the obvious focus initially being on the US and more broadly, the Americas. Please describe the company's policy on milestone payments and commercial agreements.
So in terms of accounting, milestone payments are generally recorded as revenue as and when they're received and when any obligations and rights have transferred to the other party. As you might expect, and as has been the case in the past, we try and obtain milestone payments and upfront payments from customers and partners as and when it's possible and as and when it's appropriate.
Okay. Next, please summarize the milestone payments in the agreement with Corteva Agriscience, bearing in mind that it's described as being exclusive and involves commercialization, supply, and distribution.
Well, the agreement with Corteva sees Eden share the risks and rewards with them. As you might expect, finer details are extremely confidential, but the market opportunity is really significant. It's expected that the first year sales would be material to Eden. The initial risks here really are developmental, as the product's still under development, and regulatory, given that the product is not yet registered.
One final bit of elaboration on this point. As some of you have followed the company for some time will be aware, our business model in the past has been very much built around IP licensing. And as we've evolved from a licensing business to a product development and sales business for all of the reasons that we've discussed in detail in the past, the structure of deals tends to move away from milestones, which are a hallmark, if you will, of licensing transactions, and more toward a shared risk structure for deals, where we look to our commercial partner to invest equally with us, or in some cases, more than we do. We don't ever comment on the details associated with that, but you should rest assured that in cases where we're giving any partner some exclusive right, whatever that might be, we are absolutely looking for an investment in some respect from them, whether that's in kind or if there's other more monetary consideration involved. Okay. When does the board expect to see various agreements with Eastman Chemical generate meaningful product sales, and what risks are there to such revenue materializing? Well, let's start with the initial aspect of this, which is risk. The main risk in any product launch in a given territory within our portfolio is regulatory. There isn't as much commercial risk because we really de-risked the products from a commercial perspective by very much understanding where they're useful and how to position those products. So regulatory risk is always the key driver. And in that vein, it is important to consider that regulatory risk really typically is not a question as to whether or not we secure regulatory authorization. The question is always when. As you may know, along this path of commercialization of one of our products, it is very difficult for us to anticipate how long the regulatory process will take. And that's just by nature of how this industry works. And so, it's one that requires patience and focus, and we have those. With respect to generation of meaningful sales from Eastman, we're happy to say that we are realizing some meaningful sales from Eastman now, and we expect those to continue. Key territories that have been added recently, are in particular Italy. We're also expecting authorization, as we've mentioned several times, in the US in the not too distant future. So keep an eye on those. With respect to Mexico, we had authorization at the end of 2019, and I have to say that this is one clear case where COVID has had a significant impact on our ability to launch a product in Mexico quickly. Mexico is an important market. It's a large market. As we've communicated in the past, Mexican produce serves the US retail market very, very much as the largest exporter of fruit and vegetables to the United States. But there has been some challenge associated with COVID-related work practices and bureaucratic processes. Okay. When does the board expect to see the various agreements with Sitcam generate product sales revenue in excess of £1 million per annum for Mevalon and Trilogy, and what risks are there to such revenues materializing? Well, I'm very happy to say to you, we already generate product sales in excess of £1 million per year from Sitcam. We're not going to be any more granular about that, but the truth of the matter is we have derived meaningful sales from Sitcam, and we continue to expect that to grow as new territories come online from a regulatory perspective, and territories such as Portugal are more fully commercially developed, which is ongoing as we speak. And with that said, that wraps up the question and answer session. Thank you very much for your interest, and we very much look forward to speaking with all of you soon. And thank you again.
So the question is it prudent and fair to attach any value to a non-performing investment like Terpene Tech, which has yet to launch its products? Can you please explain what the recent inquiry from FRC was about and what is its impact? So FRC made a number of inquiries back in March this year. They covered a number of different areas, particularly in respect of Terpene Tech, which is our associate company, and the relationship between Terpene Tech and Eden. We cleared off a number of those queries. The only one which was impactful, which is obviously detailed in the prelims, which we announced earlier today, is that the revenue which Terpene Tech UK, which is our associate company, generates from the sale of geraniol, we had previously recognised as revenue in our subsidiary company, Terpene Tech Ireland, on the basis that it was acting as the principal rather than the agent. Upon discussions with FRC, we reached the conclusion that for various reasons, the relationship was really that Terpene Tech UK was acting as the principal rather than the agent. And accordingly, we therefore weren't able to consolidate that revenue in the Eden Group accounts. So the revenue still very much exists. It's simply a case of where the revenue is with the associate company, you can't consolidate, and when it's with a subsidiary, you can. We felt that we could have argued the case, but in the scheme of things, we were willing to accept that the position is as it ended up.